Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon for those of you in the middle of the country to the East Coast. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, and we have got an exciting show for you today. So excited. Today is August 9th, 2023, and this is Lizzie Ens, and she is a former Amish girl who chose to jump for a better life and future. Now Board Certified Nutrition Practitioner, CEO of UnDiet You, personal trainer, author, and speaker on a mission to make an impact. Lizzie helps people get more energy, get better sleep, and rebalance their hormones by focusing on whole body healing so their body can function at its best. Welcome to the show, Lizzie.
Thank you, Jason. It's such an honor to be here. And honestly, this has been like something I've been looking forward to for a while now. So I'm excited we get to do this today.
I have definitely been looking forward to this. As we talked a little bit before going live, I saw you on one of my really good friends, one of my mentors, Mark Cox, Real Talk with Mark Cox podcast. I saw you on his show and I was like, I got to talk to this girl. This is going to be a fun story to tell, because there's a lot of things that you do and you talk about that I know that not only I will benefit from, but for those people that are watching out there, they will benefit. And of course, if you're watching live and you have any questions as we're going through today, please just post those in the comments, and we would love it if you would share the video so more of our friends out on social media can check it out. So, Lizzie, do me a favor and just kind of give us a little history, a little background, and we can just kind of roll from there.
Absolutely. Yes. So I grew up in an Amish community for 19 years of my life, and it was the strictest form of Amish community that you can literally grow up in. So when you think about where they're at, there's all these different sets and orders of Amish communities. And mine was like, I call it like the bottom of the totem pole. So strict. And if you think about, they're kind of like stuck in like 1860, like right before the steam engines came out. And the steam engines came out and they're like, no, that's too modern. We're not going to go there. So they kind of like stayed there and they create their own little community and culture. And there's a lot of good about it. But there's also a lot, just like any culture, a lot not good. But to paint a little bit of a picture, there's no electricity, there's no indoor plumbing, there's no running water. You know, they have outhouses for bathrooms. So like I never had a shower until I left, and I was 19 when I left, and it was the first time I got to take a shower. So it's really hard work, but also there's a lot of suppression, and there's a lot of rules, and there's a lot of things that I just couldn't get behind, and it's conformity, and I was confined behind those rules, and it just always felt like, man, like my spirit knew that I didn't belong there. And so when I was 19, I said, I'm out of here. I got to leave.
Yeah. You know, as soon as you start talking about the Amish community, my mind goes to like the first movie that comes to my mind is Tim Allen, Kirstie Alley, For Richer, For Poorer. But there's all kinds of movies that, you know, that we've seen out there. How much of what we see in the movies is realistic, and how much of it are we really not seeing?
It's actually really hard to like get into the depth of the Amish community. They're very, very protective. So Hollywood romanticizes it as this like peaceful, loving, quiet community. And it's very appealing for the people that are craving that kind, because our culture's, you know, so fast paced and so digital and so microwaved that people are craving the simplicity of that. And so it sort of paints this picture of like, well, I want that. And so I have a lot of people that tell me like, well, I want to be Amish. Why did you leave? You left and it's way worse out here. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. But like any culture and any kind of controlled religion like that, there's bad that comes with the good. And so I never want to paint a picture of like, hey, I have a lot of respect for the Amish culture, and I'm very grateful and thankful that I got the experience that I did. But it's really, really difficult to get the full picture of what it actually is like. It's very appealing, and I understand that. But when it comes to Hollywood, there's a show called Breaking Amish, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's a TLC show, so it's reality, and they paint, you know, this picture of the Amish community, and a lot of it is just not accurate. So, yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions.
Yeah, got it. Hey, we have our first question, and someone watching on Facebook. They said, how did you know that there was a different world out there? Because you were born into the Amish community, correct?
Yes.
So you never really knew any different. So how did you know that there was a different world out there?
Absolutely. We did not grow up in cul-de-sacs, or I mean in what are those called? Not the cul-de-sacs, the like the Hutterites. They live in compounds. Like we didn't grow up, it's compounds. We didn't grow up
Okay.
in compounds. So where I grew up, like I grew up on an 80-acre farm with my family, and our closest Amish neighbors were 3 miles away.
Hmm.
So all of our neighbors that we had that were right next to us, they weren't Amish. So we got to see parts of the outside world. We just weren't allowed to do a lot with them. Like we had a huge vegetable garden. We had
Hmm.
300 to 400 laying hens, and we would sell goods, and that's how we made money. So we had connection to the outside world. But if someone that was not Amish came to us and said, hey, they asked my mom, like, can your daughters come clean for us? My mom would immediately say no, because she didn't want us to get exposed to houses and the
Hmm.
environment that was outside of the Amish community.
Hmm. Now that's really interesting too, to know that like you weren't set completely and totally away from everything. You were somewhat connected to the outside world, but had your own set of rules, had your own set of values that were instilled in you. And you talked about this. You talked about a forced religion. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, they have the church and the preachers and the bishop, and the men primarily make the rules, and the women are supposed to follow those rules, and they don't have a lot of say. So there's definitely a hierarchy that goes with that in the community. And then
Hmm.
they're works based, not faith based. So they do have faith, but like their thought process is that you get to heaven by how you work, not
Mm-hmm.
by, I didn't know about, Jesus. I knew about Jesus, but he was kind of like just a story and a metaphor in the Bible. He wasn't like, hey, he's your savior.
Hmm.
And so it was like, if you don't follow their rules and you dress wrong, you put a pin in the wrong way, that's breaking the rules, and that there's consequences for that. So God's like up in the sky with a wrought iron waiting to beat you over the head if you're not listening and obeying their rules.
Wow. Wow. I mean, it just totally, and now kind of being out of that world, what were your thoughts when you broke away? Like what changed for you?
There was a stir in my heart when I was in like a young teenager. So I always felt like I was an outsider within the community. I was a rule breaker. I didn't follow the rules. I just visited my mom last week, and my dad, he died when I was 13, so he wasn't there anymore when I left. And so I go visit my mom every few years, because I grew up in Ohio and I live in Phoenix now, and I go see her every few years, and she's good now. Like my mom's amazing. And so we're having these conversations, and I was asking her like, hey, do you remember when we we like made red beet wine one time, and we got in trouble for drinking red beet wine and and she made us like dump this wine down the basement drain, because she's like, you guys can't have any red beet wine anymore. And it's a really funny story, but I always broke the rules, and I believe now that the reason I did that is I couldn't conform. I just couldn't conform to the rules, and I was always asking the questions. Like I would ask my mom questions all the time that she didn't have answers to, and her answer was, that's just the way it is, and that's the way it's always been. And
Hmm.
that was the best answer that she could have. So when I left, I obviously like left, and I had to experience a whole new form of freedom. Like, hey, I can actually walk into a room, turn the light on, and turn on music and not be afraid of getting in trouble, because we weren't allowed to have music.
Hmm.
So when you leave, the culture shock, and all of a sudden going, wow, I'm free. But in a sense, you have to get to know like a whole new version of yourself. So
Hmm.
it takes years. And then all of a sudden you go, man, I really don't know much, because you start to realize there's a lot about this world that you don't know because you were so sheltered. And so parts of me for quite a few years like went back into my shell, and I started to hide who I really was. And I didn't want people to know that I grew up Amish. So I like covered that up and wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
tell people. Only if someone asked me because of my accent, because that's never going to go away. I would be like, okay, yeah, I grew up Amish. But other than that, like I wouldn't tell people.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, that there was probably one day or days kind of leading up to the decision to finally break away. Like in my mind, I'm seeing this like in a movie, like it was you're running away, you're packing a bag, and you're just like leaving in the middle of the night. What what was the decision to finally leave? Um, how was that for you? How did the days leading up to that build up for you?
Yeah, it was a few years of the process. So I actually have 18 siblings. So come from a very large family, and my mom had three sets of twins. There's three sets of twins in the entire family, and I'm a twin. And so when my twin and I were 17, we ran away for 2 days. So at 17, I had a little taste of it. And then she was like, I can't do this. Like, it's like death to the family when someone leaves. Like, I mean, imagine one of your kids running away if you have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine that. Like, so to them, that's like someone died and they're mourning you because you just left your family and you left your community, the
Mm-hmm.
community that they believe that you're supposed to stay in for the rest of your life because it's the only way that you get to heaven.
Right.
So my twin was like, I can't do this. I have to go back. So I knew in my spirit that I was not supposed to go back. I wasn't, every part of me did not want to go back. But because she went back, I said, okay, I have to go back. And I went back. And then 2 years later, when I was 19, in that 2 year frame, I became a member of the church. So I got baptized within the Amish church, and I was a member for 6 months, which means the church has more control over you now because you're a member. So they're going to be watching you more closely, and they're going to, shun you if you do something wrong, which I'm supposed to be shunned by the Amish church now. And so leading up to that, there was 6 months before I left. I knew within that 2 year frame, but specifically 6 months leading up to me leaving, I knew in my heart and my soul that I was not going to be there anymore. I just had no clue how it was going to happen. And I
Mm-hmm.
was also dating a guy from New York. And our form of communication was writing letters to each other.
Wow.
So we would see each other maybe like once or twice a year, and then we would write letters to each other. So it sounds kind of romantic now, but at the time I was like, this is not romantic. and and so I didn't know how I was going to leave. So I was working at my oldest sister's house at the time. So I wasn't even at home where I grew up. And it's my turn to deliver a letter to the mail for my boyfriend. So I go to the mailbox, and I open the mailbox, and there's a note in there, and I recognized the handwriting right away. It was my boyfriend's handwriting, and had no address on it. It just had my name on it. I was
Mm.
like, well, this is interesting. He's in New York. How did this note get in here? So I open the note, and he tells me in the note that he ran away with his sister and her boyfriend, and they drove down from New York the day before. And he said, if you want to leave, we'll come by here tonight at 10 p.m. and we'll pick you up and you can leave with us. And if you don't want to leave, like, I'll come back later and we can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like snapped my fingers and I said, I'm out. This is my way out. And so I had from noon until evening to figure out, do I tell someone? How do I leave? And I'm processing this whole thing. So I end up not telling anybody that I was leaving. And I'm thinking, like, I also know that my twin sister's getting married 6 months later. And I know that if I leave at that moment in time, I would not be at her wedding. And twins
Mm-hmm.
are pretty close. So I had to make that decision knowing, do I not go to her wedding, or do I stay 6 more months and risk maybe never leaving?
Right.
just so that I can be at her wedding. And so I knew at that point in time, I have to leave. That was the only chance I was going to get. So I waited until nighttime. I go upstairs as if I'm going to bed. My sister and her family, they go to bed. And I write a little note for my family and I tell them, has nothing to do with you, but I have to do this. I have to go. And I had $20 and I grabbed that, which is pretty rare for us to have money at that age. So I grabbed the $20 I had and the clothes I was wearing, and I crawl out onto the roof and I jump off a 15-foot roof to run away.
Wow. So that was pretty dramatic. That it was, I mean, that's a lot of steps and a lot of thought to going into it because because of your sister's upcoming marriage and not really being able to talk to anybody, especially having a twin. I don't have a twin, but I understand that twins can be very close. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
sure that she could almost sense that something was going on or was going to happen at some point. Now, did anyone else in 18 siblings?
Mhm.
I have two, right? 18 siblings. Did anyone else ever leave?
Yeah, 3 of my siblings left, so there's 4 of us that left.
And was that after you?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had an older brother that left about 3 months before I did, but then like a year later he went back.
Hmm. Wow. And so, just talk a little bit more about the challenges of growing up, things that you face that, the average kid isn't going to face, or were there things that you faced as a child and challenges and struggles that you had as a child that actually benefited you and helped you now as an adult?
Absolutely. We worked really, really hard. And the only day that we got to rest was on a Sunday.
Hmm.
E- Every other day, like we started working when we were like 4 or 5, carrying wood into the house, doing the dishes. And so we learned how to work hard from a very young age. I remember some play when I was little, but I don't remember a whole lot. And
Hmm.
then, we obviously like went to school. We got eighth grade education. So we went first through eighth grade for school. And when I look back now at what the culture actually taught me, I'm very, very grateful. And there's 3 things that I say that it taught me. It's order, and it's structure, and it's discipline. And that is something that a lot of people are missing in the modern world because we have so much stuff around us, easy access to things, and it's sort of made us lazy. Where it's like, hey, we can Amazon Prime a lot of things. And I tell people now, I'm like, you can't Amazon Prime your body.
Right.
So you got to put in the work. You know that
Right.
martial arts. And so when I look at that, I'm like, those are 3 things it taught me. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But there's some other challenges with it as well that I realize now, like I didn't know at the time, but because I have a twin sister, when I was in my teen years, I was always the bigger one. I wasn't obese or anything like that, but I was bigger than she was. And so because of that, I got bullied for my weight. And it led me into extreme eating disorders and having this really bad relationship with my body that created very, very hard health issues that I had to
Hmm.
deal with while I was still at home. And then that like transferred over into my life even after I left. And so when I look at that, they don't have access to Hollywood. Like they're not like looking at Hollywood magazines and all the things that they're like promoting, like, here's what you should look like. Yet that is still in the community,
Hmm.
which is really, really interesting to me
Yeah.
that happens even without the access to that much access to the outside world.
Hmm. Yeah. We have another comment. I think this might be Roseanne again. But do you have any regrets leaving your sibling? Do they speak with you, and I already asked if the other siblings left. Do they live near you, and are you close with them?
I don't have any regrets leaving. I don't usually live a life of regret. And so when I left, I just knew that it
Hmm.
was where I was supposed to go. And so when I left, I didn't look back. Did I miss my family? Did I miss parts of it? Yes, it takes a few years to like get through that part. But regretting it, no, because I had a one lens view when I left. I said, this is where I have to go. And it was like full force, put the foot on the pedal and go. And so that doesn't mean that I didn't miss them, that it wasn't hard and it wasn't difficult, but I knew the mission. I knew what mission I was on, and I moved forward from there. So it allowed me to not look back. Like, there's a lot of people that do leave the Amish community and they have a really hard time moving forward because of the attachment to the community and the family, and they can't imagine living without that, because that is something that they have. They have really, really strong communities. They come together when there's good things and when there's bad things that happen. They come together and they have that. And that's a part that I feel like in the modern world, a lot of us are missing. We don't have, the big, strong communities to come together. And so do I speak with my siblings? I mostly see my mom. So most of my siblings are married and they live in other parts of the state or different states. So for example, like, I haven't seen my twin for over 10 years. And at one point after she had gotten married, I would go see her at her house with her husband and her kids. And the last time that I went to visit them, her husband told me that I'm not ever allowed to come back to their place again.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's rough. I mean, I almost think that, that kind of separation, is like mourning a death. Like when someone dies and they're just not in your life. I mean, and I don't know, but it has to be pretty close to the same feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And that's why it can take a few years to like sort of get over that part of it. But if you are someone that absolutely knows, like, this is where you're supposed to go and where God's leading you and what the mission is, then that's your drive. And, I've mentored people that have left and they couldn't figure out how to separate that and their family not accepting them for who they are. And here's what I tell everybody: it's like, you made the decision to leave. They didn't. And now you have to understand that you have two perspectives. You have the perspective of living in the Amish community. You know their rules and you know how they live and you know how they believe. You left, and now you have a different perspective. You have a different experience. You can create whatever family and life that you want outside of the community. But just because they don't accept you for who you are doesn't mean that they're bad people. But understand that you made the decision to leave. They didn't. And they have a right to their feelings and what they feel and think and believe just as much as you do. And when you get to that understanding, it's much easier for you to move forward.
Yeah. So tell me more about, once you left, now you're starting a new life. What were some of the first things that you did and some goals that you had right from the get-go?
Had to get my social security number first. So did not have that where we grew up. And so I had to go get my medical records from the doctor who was my mom's doctor when I was born. It was the only medical record that I had. So I had to find out who that was, call their office, go get a medical record. And then I had to go buy a birth certificate at the health department. Pay $25 for it, which was more money than I had in my pocket when I left. So I had to go get this birth certificate. And then I had to go home at some point and get my 8th grade education card. And I had to do it on a Sunday when I knew like the entire family was at church, because there was no other way that I was ever going to get it. But it was what I needed to apply for my social security number. So that was like the first thing that I needed to do, because I did get a job at a restaurant as a dishwasher 2 days after I left. And they had to pay me cash until I had my social security number. So I went and applied for my social security number. And then it was, hey, you need to learn how to drive. So I had to get in a car with someone and go to a parking lot. And they had to tell me every single step of what happens when you drive a car, because we didn't ride in cars very much. We rode in cars occasionally when it was like you need to go to the doctor, but that was it. But understanding like what a car actually does, there was no comprehension behind that. So that was the next step. And then getting my permit to drive and then getting a car to get my license.
Wow. I mean, kind of, what we would think is, just kind of the basics, like the things that we would already have, and everything would be kind of already in line. I got to ask though, so what happened with the boyfriend?
We broke up.
How long did that last?
Like a couple months after we
Okay.
left, we separated.
So
Yeah.
he helped you get out, and then,
He did his job. He helped me get out. That was his role. Yeah,
yeah.
I was talking to someone about this a while ago. I was like, yeah, I don't really know like what he's doing now. I don't know where he's at. And they're like, you
Hmm.
know what? He played his role. That was his job. And now you're here. So it's all good.
Right. So you got your social security card, you got your driver's license, right? You're working as a dishwasher. Keep walking me through what's going on next in your life.
So I did that for a while, and then I eventually ended up working as a CNA at a nursing home, and I was there for 5.5 years. And that was the first time that I had to study to get certified as a CNA. And then while I was there, I ended up going and getting my GED from there. So when I was studying for my GED, I had the most amazing teacher ever. And this is really, really uncomfortable because I'm walking into a high school that does GED classes. It's the most uncomfortable thing ever. And it was the first time that I had to study science and
Hmm.
history. And the first time I ever had heard about an essay. And I was like, what the heck is an essay? And I had to learn how to write, like free
Mm.
thinking writing. And I had never done free thinking writing. And then algebra, which by the way, I still don't understand algebra, but it's okay.
I'm with you.
Um, so I had to learn all of those things. But what's really interesting is at the time that I was studying for my GED, I didn't enjoy history. I couldn't comprehend it. And so I thought, I don't know why history is important. Now I love history,
Hmm.
but I fell in love with science when I was studying for my GED. And it was during this time that my teacher asked me, Lizzie, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, what are you passionate about? And I was like, I've never thought about that because nobody ever asked me that question when I was growing up. So I never had this thought process of, do I want to go to college? Do I want to study for something? So that got my wheels turning. And while I was working at the nursing home, I just remember being in this room one day and I'm thinking about what it is that I want to do. And I had my back turned towards the TV that was on. And all of a sudden this commercial comes on and they're talking about nutrition and going to college and getting an education in nutrition. And I literally like turned around and I pointed at the TV and I said, that's what I'm going to do one day.
Hmm.
And that's where it began.
Wow. So you got your GED, and then you're interested in nutrition, and what happened next?
I got my GED and then I got into exercise. So after a few years of that, I got my personal training certification, moved to Phoenix over 10 years ago. And that's when I studied personal training. And then I did personal training for 6 years at a training studio. But while I was there, I studied holistic health, got certified in holistic health. And then when 2020 happened, God was like, you know what? It's time. You got to go like build your own business. So I launched my own business. And then in the first year of launching my business UnDiet, I went back to school and I studied functional health. And that's when I got certified in functional health. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Well, so tell me your experience as at the nursing home, and experience at your being a physical trainer, right? What were some things that you started kind of catching on to that started to lead you down this path? What were some things that you learned that helped you get to that next step?
Love this question. When I was at the nursing home, I loved my job and it was amazing to be there and help people that are in a place of vulnerability and just being like this might be where they live for the rest of their lives. But I also worked on the rehab wing when I was there, so people that came in after surgery, like heart surgery, knee surgery, whatever, you name it, I worked on that unit to help them rehab. And while I was doing that, I thought, you know what? most of these things are preventable.
Mm.
So if I can work on the other side to help people prevent these things, then I want to do that so people don't end up, being 60 and end up being in a nursing home when they should be living an amazing, healthy, vibrant life and not having surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what led me down this path of, hey, let me go on the other side of this and help people prevent. Because here's the thing, how we're moving our body, what we're fueling our body with, we're either preventing disease or we're fighting disease. It's one or the other. And so I decided I wanted to be on the prevention side of things.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a great perspective to it, taking, that situation and turning it into something where you could be of service to others, where you could help others, you could educate others. And I think that's awesome. And then you went into, being a physical trainer, right? And so now we're talking about helping people exercise, teaching people how to exercise. What were some of your experiences with that continued to help you on this path?
Yeah, so in the first year working as a personal trainer, it was like, okay, this is my dream. Like I've always wanted to do this. But it took me less than 6 months to realize this isn't it for everything. Like I can work with someone 2 to 3 hours a week and teach them how to work out their body.
Mhm.
But what is the catalyst to your health is what you're putting into it the other 23 hours of the day. And so I started to study nutrition a lot more and realize that I want to go more into the holistic side of things versus just telling people like to go on a diet. And then I started to research the dieting industry a little bit. And I went through my phase of like extreme dieting, trying all kinds of different things. I ran a couple marathons, and did these really quick fix diets to try to like get the fastest results possible. And so you get some results, but it always left me feeling empty. Like, okay, like what did this teach me? And it's not sustainable. It's not something that I want to do forever. So really it's just a quick fix, but is it really a fix? Because it can lead to other health issues that you're not aware of. And so I started to study that. And that's when I went into holistic health. And then I decided I want to teach people how to create a healthy, sustainable lifestyle, get results, feel amazing without having to go on a diet. So basically, like, ditch all the diets that you've ever done and decide that you want to create a lifestyle that you can follow and you understand and know why it is that you're doing it, but it's sustainable, it gets you results, and you feel amazing. That's what all of that led to. And that's why UnDiet was born in the first place. It's like, hey, the dieting industry is a multi-billion-dollar dieting industry. Yet we're projected to be at like a 50% obesity rate by 2030 in the US.
Wow.
So when you really think about that, like dieting isn't the answer. It's not giving people like what they need in order to keep the weight off. But also we can take it a step further and talk about the damage that it'll do to your body as well. I went through my own personal experience of all the dieting, and I didn't know at the time that I was really destroying certain parts of my health that eventually led into hypothyroidism and malnutrition and Hashimoto's, like all of those things. Eventually, like my body was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And you create these imbalances in your body that then eventually show up with these major health issues. That's the problem that we're running into, or that we've been running into for years.
Right. Well, this is where things get really interesting for me and where I really want to dive in and learn more myself, because I was that athlete that, like, okay, as a teen and early 20s, I could literally eat anything and burn it off like that. No problem. Just burn it, right? I always thought as a younger person, I can outwork my diet. No problem, right? Okay, well, here come my 30s, right? And I'm like, wait a second. I'm not out. I can't outwork my diet. I
Mhm.
can't. I can't eat the way that I always did. I can't even work out the way that I did that when I was in my 20s. My body's starting to feel a little bit of it, being a martial artist since I was 10 years old, and so all these things. And then now in my 40s, approaching my 50s, there's no way. There's no way. Right. And so I start this program called 75 Hard. A lot of people are
Mhm.
familiar with it. Mr. Cox was talking about it on his show. Several friends of ours jumped on it, right? And so, okay, read 10 pages, drink a gallon of water, cool, no problem, right? Choose a diet. Do you know how long it took me to sit and think about what I was going to do for a diet? Because, you know, there are about 18 billion different diets
Mhm.
out there, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody, keto, warriors diet, the carnivore diet, like
Weight Watchers.
all of these things, right? So I'm literally, I commit to doing 75 hard, but I'm struggling. I'm like, what's my diet gonna be? I ended up deciding on something, that was reasonable for me, different from what I was doing, making a change in a positive direction, right? But I still go back to that question and go like, what diet should I be on? And like I get to the point where like I don't want to be on a diet. I want
Mhm.
to eat healthy, right? I want to make sure that I'm hydrating, I'm putting good things in my body. I still love to work out every day. I still love training martial arts. I want my body to feel good because I know that even the foods that I eat can cause inflammation in my joints. They can cause fogginess in the brain. There's just all these different things that I feel it. Like sugar, for example. We all know, like
Mhm.
immediately I love jelly beans and that's just my thing.
Skittles.
Skittle, yeah. And then like as soon as I eat it and I'm sitting there going, like feeling like that fog, I'm like, why did I do that? I just
It
feel
cross your
terrible.
blood-brain barrier.
Yeah, it's just it's silly, right? But anyway, so I want to turn it back to you and talk to us about you know dieting. Talk to us about the different things for somebody that's struggling like me, right? Like I need to choose something that works, right? Like
Mhm.
walk me through the steps, and those people that are watching, this is where you guys really want to tune in and listen. What's your advice?
I love this. This is my jam. So, first thing I want to make clear is if you're choosing to eat healthy, and just like you explained, like I just want to eat healthy and have my body feel good, that's not dieting. That is wellness. That is you choosing to take care of your health and your body. I had this conversation with someone recently, and I said, "What do you think when it comes to undieting?" And they said, "Oh, it makes me feel like I'm going to stop dieting and I'm going to go eat whatever I want." And I said, "Okay, that's the wrong mindset because eating healthy doesn't equal dieting, but because of the dieting industry, we have this thought process, like it's almost weird to be like, hey, I'm just eating healthy and it's not quote unquote a diet because there's
Mm-hmm.
no name attached to it, because we feel like we have to have a name attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
That is not what it is. Eating healthy and fueling your body with nourishing foods, that is wellness. That is you choosing to take care of your temple and your body that you've been given. That's what it should be. So how do we do that? We go back to the basics. This is what I teach everybody. You got to learn how to go back to the basics. What are the basics? The basics are learning what is it that you need to be fueling your body: carbs, fats, proteins, fruits, vegetables, making sure you're getting fiber. How do we go back to the basics of that? And then your water intake and your sleep and your movement. Like those are the basics and the foundation of your health. And if you can learn how to do those in a healthy, sustainable way, 80 to 90% of the time, and then the other 10-20%, you have the cookie, you have the cake, you have, because that's life too. Because wellness in your health is so much more than just about how we move our body and what we put in it. It is
Mm-hmm.
it is the entire picture of, okay, what are you doing that also makes you happy? Like what are you doing that, are you having communion with your friends and your family and you're enjoying, if you're going to a party, you guys are talking and eating food and you're happy And maybe you're having pizza, but you're really, really happy with the people that you're hanging out with. That's love and that's wellness. And it's okay. Like, you don't have to worry about that, because that's only a small percentage of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So you have to create that balance, and you have to have sustainability and realize that it's so much more than just focusing on the food and what you can or can't have. But going back to the basics, like I always tell people, is like, what I teach my clients is what we should be teaching high schoolers. Like, they should have a section in high school where it's like, this is what nutrition is. This is what a carb is. This is what it does. This is what protein does. This is what fat does. And this is why fruits and vegetables are important. If they would just learn that in high school and understand that, they probably wouldn't go to college and have, the college, what is it, 50-20 that happens in college. They wouldn't have that, because if you have that understanding. But since we don't have that in high school, then as parents, it's our job to teach our kids those things. My son's 4, and I teach him what protein is and why it's important.
Yeah. Going back, you said this, there's not always a name for the diet that you're on. And, it's like, some people feel like they're failing if they're not, like, all my friends are doing the carnivore diet. All my friends are doing the, whatever, all the names, and you feel like you're failing. And then, that's another thing too, is you talked about being able to think more about the wellness aspect than the, okay, what am I constantly eating? Because then we get stuck in that rut of, I'm trying to eat clean. I'm trying to eat clean. I'm trying to eat clean. Oh, I had cake. Now I'm going to not eat for like a whole day. Or now you know what I mean? And it's that idea of failure that goes through our minds. I mean, some people have a really bad relationship with food. Like, just the thought of food and choosing foods drives them crazy, right? It's just like, I'd rather not eat than think about what I'm going to eat, right? And then there's people like me that I absolutely love food. I love all foods. I don't I don't kick anything out, but I like it, right? So anyway, but sometimes my relationship with food is like, I get in this I'm going and going and going. Now I'm off track. Damn it, right? So tell me, the other question I had too, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I wrote this down. What are your thoughts on BMI? Because this is always something that's annoying to me.
It's relevant, but not relevant. So like, if you're a guy that's like 200 pounds, but you're at 10% body fat, it's going to show that your BMI is too high, but yet your body fat is pretty low. So you rather look at what is your body fat and what is your visceral body fat, which is your body fat around your organs. That's what you want to look at versus just the BMI. So is it relevant in some aspects, but it is overly done. So I actually just recently saw an article where they are trying to push where doctors can't use BMI as a category of telling people whether or not they're obese or not. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't pay too much attention to the BMI part. I want to see like, where's your body fat at, but more or less, like, I want to know how you feel. And I want to know that you're sleeping well and that you have energy and that you feel good. And then, the weight loss and the body fat, like, all of that's just a byproduct of that. And I want to touch a little bit on wellness. Wellness it's like this pendulum that swings, and our life changes. And so we have to learn how to swing with this pendulum as our life changes. So what you did 10 years ago isn't going to work today because your life changed. Your kids get older, your career might change, your schedule changes. So we have to learn how to swing and move with that pendulum. It's the same idea as if you're traveling, that's going to look different. Your routine's going to look a little different than when you're at home. So how do you make that happen? It's really, really important. That's where tuning in with yourself and what is going on. If you have a lot more stress the one week, okay, what do you do in that week when you have a lot more stress? You probably are going to have to ease up a little bit on some of your routines that are more strict. Like maybe you don't have as much. An example would be like if you're really, really stressed and really, really busy, and my clients are like, I'm not getting to my workouts. I said, listen, that's okay. What you can do is make sure that you're fueling your body really well and getting sleep and water. Like those are 3 things that you can do. And next week, when you're not as busy and not as stressed, we pick it back up. But it does not mean that you fell off the wagon. I don't like when people say, oh, I fell off the wagon. I'm like, well, why did you get on the wagon? We never even got on the wagon. You're not supposed to get on the wagon. So you're not going to fall off the wagon. But there is such a thing as like, oh, hey, I didn't have a great week. Next week, it's going to be better. You can always pick yourself back up and keep going, but you want to always think about your foundation. What is it that you need to do to keep your foundation strong? Because you can't build the walls if you don't have a strong foundation.
Right. Right. Well, let's go back to that foundation and talk to us about, protein, carbs, fats, simple basics, things people can think about because, again, when people are thinking about, I want a meal plan and I want to do the right thing. Right. And we start talking about your macros and people are like, I can't keep track of all of that. Like it's so much work. Like give me some basic guidelines on those and how you would recommend people try to follow a good path.
Yeah, I would say learn what your carbs are, learn what your complex carbs are. That's key because you do have to educate yourself. So it's really, really hard to understand and know how to do it if you haven't done the education piece behind it. So learn what your carbs are, learn what your proteins are, and learn what your healthy fats are. You have to know those 3 things. But if I were to go and build like a balanced meal, I would say, okay, I want 5 ounces of chicken. I want a cup of vegetables. That's going to run into the complex carb arena, but I'm going to count it as my vegetable. And then I'm going to have either a potato or I'm going to have rice. And that's my complex carb. So now I have the complex carb, I have the protein, and I have the vegetable. And chances are I cooked with some kind of healthy fat. So I'm not really worried about bringing in another piece of fat because I probably used it while I was cooking. If I feel like I need some more, maybe I'll have some cheese or an avocado or something like that. And that'll bring in the full picture of the meal. And so when you think about basic and simple, that's how you want to think of it. Now, do we cook a much more complex? Of course we do. But the 3 things that you always want to think about is what's my protein, what's my vegetable, and what's my complex carb. Those are the things that you want to think about when it comes to a meal. If you can get those basics down and you try to have that in every single meal, like you are far ahead of the game. And you're going to start feeling better too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you were talking about sleep, and how important sleep is to the whole process of wellness because, if you're eating great and you're working out, but you're not sleeping and you've got a lot of stress and you're constantly, in the grind, that sleep can really change your overall wellness, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about good sleep habits.
Good sleep habits is 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. And if you have a hard time getting that, then you want to make sure that you're not like scrolling and doing screen time within an hour of going to bed so that your melatonin can actually kick in. So that's something that a lot of people have trouble with is like actually turning things down, an hour before and have a good bedtime routine so that your brain can start to like calm down. Because if we're scrolling and we're looking at screens and all that, it's just stimulation. And the blue light from screens will prevent melatonin from kicking in like it should. And so you have to make sure that you have a good bedtime routine so you can actually go to bed and get some sleep and just be very, very structured with that. And once you do that and you start getting more sleep, your sleep, what you get or don't get, it will always roll over into how you feel the next day. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you're going to be more tired And when you're more tired, you also crave more carbs, like simple carbs. Like if you really think about it, when you don't sleep well or you don't sleep enough, like the next day you're like, oh man, a donut sounds really good right now. That's like your body going like, because like simple carbs like that are quick, fast burning carbs. They'll die off really easy, but it's like your body going, I need something quick for energy. And so that's when we start craving the candy and the cakes and the cookies, because we're like, we just need something quick. So that's what part of no sleep or not enough sleep will do. But also remember one thing, when you're sleeping, this is when your body is detoxing, and this is when your body is supposed to rest and digest. But if it doesn't have the right things to do that, then let's say you like go out to eat and you eat like a really, really big meal, and then like an hour later you go to bed, you may not sleep well, because this entire time that you're supposed to be sleeping and your body's supposed to be resting and digesting, it's actually working on digesting the food. So when we eat ice cream at night and we drink at night, like our body and our liver specifically, while we're sleeping, is working on digesting that. So ideally, you're not eating and drinking things that close to bedtime, so that your body can actually do its job that it needs to, which is detoxing and then resting and digesting and rejuvenating, like healing. That's when healing happens. That's what we want our body to be doing when we're sleeping. So sleep is incredibly important for overall health.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
It can work for some people. If you have adrenal issues, if you have hormone issues, cortisol issues, probably not the best fit. Men seem to get away with it a lot better than women. So for some men, they're extremely successful with it and can work really well. For some women too, but you have to just know what's going on with your body. And I've done it before. And now occasionally I'll do it, but not very often. I just tune into like how I'm feeling. But sometimes I'll do a 72-hour fast. And that is a whole different experience. It can be healing as well, but also it's not for everyone. So again, it's one of those things that you really have to know whether or not it's the right fit for you. And it isn't for everybody. So yeah.
Well, last thing, when we're talking about, health and wellness, and we're talking about fasting and stress and sleeping, how about supplements? Because if we're eating properly, right, we should be getting most, if not all, of our nutrients and all of the vitamins that we need. But if there were any supplements that you think most people could benefit from, what would you suggest?
The most basic ones are a good magnesium and a probiotic. Magnesium it's just such a phenomenal vitamin and mineral. It's actually a mineral, but it has over 300 metabolic functions, and it's really, really good for your brain health, your gut health, your nervous system, muscle recovery, sleep. Really good for sleep. But there's all different kinds of categories of magnesium. I like glycinate or biglycinate. I think that's a really, really good one. And then a probiotic, just most people aren't getting enough probiotics in their diet to begin with. And that's so good for your gut microbiome. So those are like two basic ones. But beyond that, when I work with clients, I run their labs and we go internal to see like what is going on and what is their body needing. They don't get any other supplements until we look at what is their body really needing. So if they're low in iron, low in B12, those kinds of things, then we're going to bring some things in based on what their body needs. And so we're not just shooting things, in the dark to guess what they need. I don't like that. So that's why I do lab work to see what's really going on and then give their body what it needs from there. And we like to get a good amount of that through food, but some things, it's just really, really difficult to get all of it through food. And let's not forget, our food is not what it used to be. Our soils are not what it used to be. So it can be difficult to get the amounts that we need through food, depending on what's going on with the body.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned magnesium and probiotic. for people that don't like to take, they don't want to take a pill, or they don't want to take a supplement, what kind of foods could they be looking to eat more of to potentially get those vitamins and minerals?
Probiotics, you want to think about cultured, fermented foods, so sauerkraut, yogurt. I love sauerkraut. I'm a huge fan of sauerkraut. Even if you have like a couple tablespoons before a meal, once or twice a day, like you're doing some amazing things for your digestion. And yogurt, obviously. And then there's kefir, there's kimchi, there's all of those things that you can bring in through your diet to help you get those probiotics. There's actually there's a company called Coconut Cult that has really strong probiotics that is in a yogurt form, and you just eat like 2 tablespoons every morning, and you can use that as your probiotic. Pricey, but it's yummy, and they have really fun flavors.
I think I must have seen a reel or a TikTok or something that you did, because I actually have a jar of sauerkraut in my refrigerator because of you. I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. And like, I didn't really love sauerkraut, but I started using it. And like you said, like, an hour or so before a meal. And I don't know, there's just kind of something settling about it. And then like I started going back to having yogurt with fruit in the morning as my, pre-workout meal. And so thanks to your advice already from some of your videos I've been watching. So something my son has been using lately, maybe I'll get your thoughts on this. Sea moss.
Sea moss. How is he
I don't know
using?
I don't know the brand of it, but it's like, 2 tablespoons in the morning, 2 tablespoons at night. And it's like a jelly, like a gel.
Oh, yes. I haven't personally used it myself. What's he
Okay.
using it for?
He's just using it because he wants to, stay ripped, right? So the ad told him that take 2 of these in the morning and night and you stay ripped. And I'm like,
Is it keeping him
well,
ripped?
it's not working for me, but it's working for him. He's 18, I'm 49, so there's the difference.
Yeah, he's probably like got his testosterone through the roof, so he's fine. He's like the kid that can like go to McDonald's every day and still be ripped.
Probably. But I was just curious what your thoughts are. I just thought of that last second.
Yeah,
but
I'd have to look into it. I wonder if it usually sea products like that are pretty high in iodine.
okay.
So I'd have to look into that. And now that you say that, I'm like, I actually feel like I've seen a video talking about sea moss, but I just haven't looked into it.
All right. Well, I'll follow up and get your thoughts on that later.
Yes.
Anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to close the show with?
Absolutely. So remember the basics. Remember that that's where, if you want to start anywhere when it comes to your health, like go to the basics, learn what those are, learn what your carbs, fats, and proteins are. If you're starting out, like remember, educate yourself on those, remember that. And then, baby steps. Don't feel like you have to do it all at one time. I teach my clients, take it 1 to 2 steps at a time, like 1 to 2 things a week that you're going to be working on, and work on building it from there. Wellness doesn't have a ceiling. You're going to change and evolve as your life changes and evolves, and you have to learn how to evolve with that. So don't ever put a ceiling on it, but move with it. Like move with that, with your journey. Learn how to enjoy the process, because I'm like, listen, if you're not going to enjoy any of this, why are you doing it? So you got to learn how to enjoy it. And I'll leave you with this. I saw a clip with Mike Tyson a while ago, and he said something really profound, where he said, do the things that you hate, even if you don't want to, but do it like you love it. And I'm like, that is the epitome of discipline and showing up and doing the things that you don't want to do. But if you do it enough and you do it like you love it, eventually that's like, I'm building a habit. And if it's something that it's important to you and is going to help you transform, then you just got to do it.
I love it. Well, Mike Tyson is one of my favorite fighters of all time. And so I have seen that meme several times. So I love that. And the reminder of baby steps and enjoying the process. Sometimes we get so hung up in, I got to do everything today. I got to do it all. If I don't do it all, I can't do it at all. And so that's that for me, even that's a good reminder that I can't get everything done right now. But if I make one small change each day, each week, each month, but maintain the habits and, enjoying the process, right? I think that's important too, because we talk about that in martial arts, right? I mean, if you're not enjoying the process every time you come to class, every time you earn your new belt, you can't focus so far into the future, but just focus on the day right in front of you.
Yeah, having the mindset of I get to learn, not like I have to do it, but I get to do this because you know that what it's going to do for you. So, the other thing that I want to just say is like figure out what your why is. If you're in this journey and you're like, all right, I'm starting, like, what's your why? And it has to be more than just losing weight. Like, you can't just go in and be like, I want to lose 50 pounds. That's not big enough. Because if things get hard, you're going to be like, whatever, I'm okay with where I'm at. But if you're if you know what your big why is behind why you want to do it, maybe it's for you to be able to play with your kids better. Maybe you want to feel confident taking a photo with your kids because you want to remember that, but you're not comfortable in front of the camera. Maybe that's your why. Maybe it's because you are going to have grandkids one day, or maybe you do have grandkids and you actually want to be around for them and you want to be able to be vibrant and healthy. And maybe it's that you want to be an example and be able to teach your kids. It could be anything, but you have to figure out what that is. And then that's what's going to keep you going when things get difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime that I find myself struggling in any of these areas, I have to remind myself of that, remind myself of the why, how I feel and where I want to be in the years to come with my kids or my family or my students, all of those things. So that's a really great bit of advice. So thank you. Thanks for being on the show today. It was so great talking with you and sharing your story. I loved everything from talking about coming from the Amish family into bailing out and getting out and doing your own thing. And then, working at the nursing home and a personal trainer, and now working on your UnDiet philosophy and sharing that with the world. So keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
All right. Well, guys, listen, that's it for today. Please, again, do us the favor of sharing this video so more people can see it, and go to YouTube and subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast. For today, that's it, guys, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you.